Thank you. Straight out here?
I remember you. Didn't you used to be Sean Young?
Indeed.
How are you?
You smell good.
Let me look at you. You're no longer blonde, but you never were blonde. Sit yourself. In anticipation of this wonderful meeting of ours, we have water.
There you go. I'm so happy you saw me.
Let me see your hair. Oh yes, there you are.
There I am with all my hair.
Now this is your natural color.
Well, no, I dye my hair. But...
Now, what were you when I first saw you were blonde?
Oh, I don't know what show I was doing at the time.
Now, I was trying to remember. This is, there are cameras here.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, this is the only way I could figure to get myself healed.
Now, I think we're going to refer to them, but we're really talking to you. We haven't seen each other for at least 2 or 3 years.
We haven't seen each other since the DGA when I got drunk.
You were drunk once in your life. Yeah, people made such a big fuss about that. Like nobody had ever gotten drunk and made a remark. Yeah. And it wasn't such a terrible remark. You yelled at something while we were on stage. Julian Schnabel was up there.
No, I think I said get on with it. But I still feel embarrassed about it.
You said get on with it. It became such it became something that it shouldn't have been. It was nothing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
You had a couple of very bad raps early on, and I found out about those. Let me tell the story to you as I remember it. I saw you, what was the picture I saw you where you fell off a thing and died?
No Way Out.
No Way Out. I didn't know who you were. All I said, who is this vision who can act and look as pretty as she did and then melt us all by dying? You fell over a banister.
Through a table, yeah.
A table, anyway. And I said, what? And I remembered you. And then, now I'm doing a picture called Fatal Instinct. Is that the name? Yeah, Fatal Instinct. By the way, misnamed. I must tell you this.
It was Triple Indemnity. It was gonna
Triple Indemnity was a very good title because it was a takeoff of all the film noir. Mel Brooks came up with the title. And I called it into the head of, I don't want to mention his name because it was so foolish. I said, I got a new title for you that is going to make a fortune for you. Frontal Attraction. Now, look, that's exactly what people would have said. They would have laughed and would have gone to see it. Anyway, it did fairly well, but not as well as it should have done. But when I was doing Frontal Attraction, I said, we described this girl as looking like you, and I said, Sean Young would be perfect for this. And when I said that to whoever the powers would be, he said, Sean Young could be trouble. That was what he said. And I said, why? I saw her in a movie. She's a wonderful actress. You had done a movie with somebody and got a bad rap. Somebody lied about you and said something that became, and I tried to find out what that was. And I called you and I said, what is this? And you told me the truth about it. That was fine for me. And I said, we'll hire her. And this guy said, you better check out. I said, I just checked with her and she told me the story and I really believed in it. It was true, the story. We won't go into it, but it was, some crazy person made up a story and it stuck. Had nothing to do with what you did. So now I can't remember the guy, and they said, and the studio said, you still better check further. The last person she worked with, it was a director, he was in London, an English.
Oh, James Dearden.
What was his name?
Yeah, James Dearden.
James Dearden.
For Kiss Before Dying, I think that's probably what it was.
So they said, call him. He used it. So I called him in London. And this is a lovely, so nice to hear the truth. I told him the story as I'm thinking of using Sean Young. I love her work. I think she's terrific. And I believe what she said about me, and I just want to get corroboration. He said, I'll tell you a story about Sean Young. And this is the story he told me. He said, we needed an American actor, a middle-aged American actor to play this part, and there were no middle-aged American actors. We got an English actor, and he had a creditable American accent, but he couldn't cut it. He couldn't remember the lines. He was fumbling all over the place, and we were about to fire him, and Sean Young came over and said, don't fire him. He's very sweet. Let me work with him a while. And you took him into your dressing room for an hour, 2 or 3 or 4. You worked with him. He came out. He was letter perfect. He says, that's who Sean Young is. She couldn't see it. Bad to see a guy get fired. And of course, my experience with you on the set of Fatal Instinct was one of the most delightful. And I always tell this story when there are two people, Jack Nicholson. Robbie tells this story about Jack Nicholson too. I said, there are some actors who really care about the product. I said, there was a scene, this is indicative of what Sean Young does. I said, there was a scene where she's doing pole dancing, and you're very funny and sexy, pole dancing. She's writhing on a pole with these great legs and wrapping around. And it was very intricate, and we had about 2 cameras on you. We did close-ups, we did long shots. You did it about 8 or 9 times, very strenuous. And now we're cutting around and doing Armand Asante and Sherilyn Fenn watching you do this. And you were writhing, and there were close-ups and long shots, and they're on them. And I said to you, I said, you don't have to writhe so much because I mean, it's so debilitating. And you said, no, they should see what I'm doing. And off stage, you were working your ass off, and it's this same story with Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. He had these long speeches, and he had to do them on close-up, and then he did them for the other actors over the shoulder. Now Robbie's picking up a few reactions from the audience, from the spectators, and he's full out screaming, "You can handle!" And Rob went to him and he said, "You don't, he says, I may not even use these shots," and he said, "Rob, he's a wonderful part. These are wonderful lines. I love saying them. I'll never get a chance to say them again. Let me just do it, will you?" And he did it. Same kind of, actors are.
Well, that's why Jack's Jack, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's just very special that way.
How about I put you in a category with Jack Nicholson?
Well, there you go. You're making me cry here, Carl.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, can you see the tear? It's worth.
Yeah, close-up tears.
Yeah.
Well, no, I actually wanted to say that I'm sorry for being so embarrassing that night, and I know that you understand a lot of the other elements of it.
Didn't bother me one bit.
Well, yeah, and I think what's been bothering for me over the years is that I felt kind of like. I mean, one of my big complaints has been, that I'm blacklisted and that I can't get the right people to take me seriously.
Is this true yet?
I think it's pretty true. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at you now, and I'm saying, my God, there are 100,000 programs that should be using you right now.
Well, I think that's true, but if I'm actually finding a better attitude. I think there is a lot of truth to that. I got an unfair rap. I do think that's true.
No question about it.
And I do think that my reaction to that hasn't helped. I mean, when you feel like you have some sort of injustice
so you want to say,
you're fighting.
May almost culpa.
Yeah.
May almost culpa. I'm almost. Yeah.
May almost culpa. Yeah, that's sort of it. Yeah, that's a good one. And that's accurate. That's probably the most accurate statement. But I've been feeling, paralyzed. I mean, I've just been feeling like I'm afraid to reach out. I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm, like living in too much fear. And
you know something? While you're talking, I'm thinking there's 2 things you should be playing. The life story of Sean Young. No, it's a very interesting story. A very interesting story coming to this point, and then from this you're going to get the part that you're going to love. Maybe it's in a series or something on HBO. I don't know.
Well, I'm working on The Young and the Restless, and
are you on it now?
Yeah, I got a regular Eric Braeden, which is
he's forever.
Yeah, he's forever. He's like you. He's a real gentleman, you know. And I think I respond well with gentlemen because I have such a.
Are you on right now? I mean.
Yeah, I work on it now.
If I tune it in, you'll be on it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to tune it in.
Yeah. And I have, I worked with Eric in a movie, a Western that he produced, and then, that was like the last thing I've done in terms of doing a really great movie. And I used to see him all the time where I go to spin. I do this spinning exercise and stuff, and he always eats breakfast at the same place. And I would always go, "Oh, Eric, everybody's so mean to me, and I don't know what to do, and I've tried everything, and boo-hoo-hoo." And, he said, I'll talk to the producers at Young and Restless, and he did. And I really like the job in the sense that it just gives me a sense of being wanted and
that's
feeling.
Wonderful.
That's the bottom line.
That's got to be the foot in the door, Young and the Restless, because nobody knows what that is. You have to be the most professional people work on those soap operas because they have to get on their
you
mark
gotta-
and learn
yeah.
their lines, and there's
Oh,
no
you gotta
fooling
be-
around.
No, there's no fooling
No.
around on that, and it's
Well,
like,
everybody in the business knows that about that, so I think that's your springboard right now. That and this show and your presence here
in my future.
and your future. Your future
Well.
is in my hands. No.
Oh, Carl, I've missed you.
Well, you don't
You
have
know?
to.
I know. I have. Well, I'm learning how. One of the things that I've learned about myself is that I was this way as a kid, so
Hey,
I
by
can't
the-
really blame it on
Yeah.
current,
Yeah.
life in
Yeah.
Hollywood. I was shy as a kid. That was true about me as a kid,
You
and I
have-
kind of covered it up. Being an actress kind of lured me into sort of covering
You
it up.
know something? You're
A lot
not
of
alone.
actors are
Every
that way.
actress is shy. That's why they're actors.
I know,
They're
and this
too
is
shy to talk, so but they get up on the stage and say,
it's
"Love
like,
me."
woohoo!
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and it's actually
By
it's
the way,
a cliche.
do you have siblings?
I have a sister and a brother. Yeah.
And how did you get along with them as kids?
Well, I was the youngest, so I was kind of overshadowed by them. They were very funny and outgoing. And you might know my sister, Kathleen Young. She's the executive director for the Humanitas Foundation, and she gives the award every year for the writing.
Yeah.
And gives money to writers.
Yeah.
So
And she
which
knows
is-
you're a good person, doesn't she?
Oh,
She
yeah.
knows you're Humanitas, right?
Yeah. She's no. I mean, I think what I'm trying to do is stop focusing on the injustice
Yeah.
and just focus on myself and stop recreating this monologue in my head, and be willing to feel uncomfortable reaching out. Because that's been a real
This is the
roadblock for
program
me.
where you put it to bed. From now on, you don't have to do that anymore. You never really had to do that.
Well,
But-
that's what I'm discovering is that I never really had to do that, but for some reason my emotional state was just, I'm very sensitive. I'm extremely sensitive, and I really have had a hard time managing that sensitivity and not feeling like the urge to run and stay in my room and not call anybody and not reach out.
Have you tried psychiatry, madam?
Well, darling, for a little while I did there with
Because my
a relative of yours.
No, my daughter's a psychiatrist.
Oh, I saw your daughter.
You really did?
Yeah, I went to see her.
See,
for like a
I
year.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, she's a real good psychiatrist.
Her best strength, your daughter's best strength.
Isn't that
in her
interesting?
work
She's
is her dream analysis.
Well, she's a.
That's what she does. She now analyzes your dreams, and she knows she's got a secret weapon there.
Well, she's not got a secret weapon. Annie Reiner, my daughter, is one of the smartest human beings I know, and she's just written a book on psychiatry. It's called.
I would like that book.
Quest for Conscience and the Birth of a Mind. The two things. Nobody's ever worked on conscience, which is a different concept. A new concept in psychoanalysis that is getting all kinds of acclaim all
What's
over.
the concept?
Well,
It's
you
you gotta
and
read
I
the
couldn't
book.
discuss
Yeah,
it.
we gotta read the book.
No, even if you read the book, you'd have to be a psychoanalyst and understand. Anyway, but that's amazing. It's funny because one of the things about being a doctor, a psychoanalyst, is you don't tell people who your clients are. Now, my daughter knows how close we were at one time. She never even mentioned it.
Well, I guess that's part of the game.
I'm going to tell her that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
but, okay.
And she was there that night too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there was really nothing happened. You yelled, "Get on with it!" That was and a drunken thing. We were talking on.
I got whisked out of there. There
I
was
know.
like a level of.
That's what made it silly. If that guy hadn't whisked you out, you would. It was with one line.
Well, I
I
know-
took it as a joke because we were going on too long. The whole program was going on too long. Probably
Well,
a lot of people were
those are
thinking.
typical of award shows. No,
A lot of people were thinking that, and you dared to say, "Get on with it, move the show along."
And
Anyway.
actually, it wasn't just getting drunk because I know I'm not the first actor in town to ever get drunk.
No kidding.
I'm sure that's the case. But I think that the event was more than just me getting drunk. It was me finally having a meltdown from all of these years of having to sort of defend myself.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I really have felt picked on. I felt sort of picked on and kind of like, what's going on here?
Here's a question. You have children, I know. How old are they now?
They're 12 and 15.
How are they doing?
They're great.
How are you as a mother?
Yeah.
I bet you're a great mother.
Yeah, I'm a wonderful mother.
I figure you are.
And
Because you're empathetic. You probably realize what they might be going through.
Well, they're the best thing that's ever happened.
Oh, really?
You know, for me. I mean, they're just the best thing ever. And Robert wanted to say hello. He said he said hello. Now, we got divorced in 2001, and
I know, and you're
then
back
this
together?
divorce isn't working out very well because we can't seem to stay away from each other.
Isn't that nice?
That is nice.
So wait a while. You got divorced. How long were you apart?
2 years.
And then how long ago was that?
2001. So that was like 8 years ago. That was like 10 years ago. That was like 9 years ago, and then 7 years ago.
But during that time, you both parented the kids separately, but he saw them all the time.
Yeah, I'm a great person to divorce. I don't cause any trouble.
No, but so
You know.
so you've been together for 6 years now,
Yeah.
and it's working.
For the most part, it's working because when I gave up drinking, watching him drink wasn't that easy, and he's a guy who shouldn't actually drink either.
Is he drinking yet?
I don't think that his drinking ever got like as bad as mine.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to find your own sobriety, and then when you're around somebody, you know.
But when you say that, that's the only. In other words, you get along on every other level except.
Yeah.
You worry about.
Yeah.
That
I
ruining
wouldn't want to be without him.
Well, liquor ruined you guys before, so why? Oh, well, if he watches this program, he'll understand how deeply you feel about it.
Oh, I think he knows that. I think he knows that.
No, but telling the world about it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how have you been all this time?
I've been all right.
Yeah. I saw you on TV with Betty White.
Oh, yes.
She's so cute. You guys were so cute in that. I was just so adorable. You were comparing medication, your favorite medication, right?
Oh, yeah, on Hot in Cleveland. The
Adorable.
interesting thing about Betty and I is that I call her my captain-in-law because her husband, Alan Ludden, was my officer in the Army. When I was a teletype operator in the Signal Corps. On my way to Iwo Jima, I auditioned for him and Maurice Evans, who ran a special service section. I was a comedian, but I had never done it in my real life. Back home, I was an actor, but in the Army, I became a comedian. And I auditioned for them. They traded me. They got me out of going to Iwo Jima and sent me out touring entertaining troops.
Almost like the USO.
It was the beginning of my career as in comedy. And so I said, "You're my captain-in-law." Her husband is the guy who actually had helped me get out.
Oh, isn't that something? I bet you have so many stories. I've heard some of your stories. That's one of the things I actually felt so close to you about was hearing those stories and just feeling what your life was like. And I want you to know that was a very special time for me on that show and working with you because I felt very close to you, like you were a father figure for me, and that was really true.
That was one of the best, most fun, except for a couple of actors who couldn't. No, we don't want to talk about it. No. It was mainly fun, but directing some people who were undirectable. Doesn't matter, it worked out.
Yeah.
But but some of the scenes you did were absolutely hilarious. You really threw yourself.
I would love to do more comedies. I think that's the thing that rocks my boat. I mean,
get a copy of that and hand it to a lot of people. Tell them to look at it. They'll know.
Who? Oh, you mean our movie? Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
No, I actually always say that, like, this is the comedy I did, and this is the other comedy I did, because a lot of I seem to suffer from a lot of people not knowing sort of the truth about me, that like I can be in comedy.
But you've got to pass that one around because you are brilliantly funny in that, and I love that last scene where you're getting slapped around.
I like the scene.
She's my sister. Yeah. She's my daughter.
Remember the scene? Remember the scene? I'm on the table, and we're Armand DeSanti and I are having sex, and I've got 4 plates spinning on top, and all at once I go like that, and they all 4 fall off at the same time.
And you actually did it. Nobody believed that you did it. You actually did it. Oh, yeah, that was. And you were. Oh, yeah. Anyway, reminiscing about good old days.
Yeah.
Now, this is the good old days. I've been in this house since 1961, 2 marriages under this tree.
Wow.
And my wife and I, 65 years.
How is Estelle?
She died. That's how she is.
Estelle died?
2 years ago.
See how hell? I don't care. You know what?
Well,
I've just been hiding under
well,
a
if you don't,
rock.
you know, see, I
had
would.
no idea.
I know when everybody dies because the first thing I read is the obituary column. If I'm not in it, I have my coffee. If I'm in it,
I had no
no,
idea.
yeah, no, 2 years ago.
Did that?
65 years is a long time to live with someone, and then
Oh, I
all of a
love
sudden they're
just,
not there. I know. So
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
I know. That's. I've been having little mortality moments actually in dreaming, because I know this sounds. I'm sure you understand this now. You're 85.
88.
88. I mean, I'm 50.
What?
50, and I've had I know, right? It seems young, right, when you're
Yeah.
88, right? So, you know, but when you've been like, you know, really young, right? Of course,
Yeah.
we've all been younger
Yeah.
at some point, and I've been having these kind of moments where I wake up at like 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, and this sounds really silly, but it's like the thought has been like, right, I'm actually gonna die, you know?
Yeah, well,
it sort of hits you at a certain
I
point.
know.
Your mortality hits you, and you
Yes.
kind of you have like a sort of like a moment, and I don't know why when you're young you don't realize that. My kids don't learn. They're like,
Well, yeah.
forget it, I'm gonna live forever.
And it's
you know?
it's a good idea. I think your nature takes you to the various signposts, and you get to be a certain age, you start thinking about things like that. At this age, what you think is how I want to go. You want to go good. You don't want to go.
Yeah, that's right. How did Estelle go?
She went in her bedroom.
In her sleep?
No, not in her sleep. We're all there. As a matter of fact, it was one of the. I just talked about it the other day. She was 94. She had sung from the time she started singing. She was in
I went to see
her
her sing
60s. I remember.
yeah.
When she was 60, she sang till 93. She had a gig when she was 94, but she got sick. And my daughter, who now has her daughter inherited her voice and timing. She sings now, my daughter.
Annie?
Annie, she said, our mother, she sings Leonard Cohen songs, different songs than her mother, but the same kind of sweet, perfect pitch. Anyway, so she sang until she was 93. And the last year was very sad. She was still planning to sing some more. She was collecting songs, all kinds of wonderful songs. And the last days, she was in a bedroom, but always fully conscious of everything, making plans and listening to music. And the last day, this is the way you want to go. You want to go in your own home. You want to go with your loved ones. Our 3 children and our nephew, George Shapiro, was with her on the bed, talking to her, and she was slowly expiring. And wasn't talking for about a half hour, breathing very shallowly. We all realized the hospice was there, which is very good. The hospice there, and I'm on bed talking to her. And they're telling her she can go. My daughter is saying, you know, it's okay. You should see she wanted to go, but wasn't saying very much, just breathing and sighing. And an hour before, there was nothing. She was just quietly breathing, nothing. We don't know if she could hear us. Mm-hmm. We were talking to her, and she was out of it. And 5 or 10 minutes before, I said, you know, in her bedroom, she always had her music stands and her microphones. I said, put on her last album, Adult Songs for Children. It's a wonderful album where she sings these 27 songs that children would never know they were old songs, but she sings it
For them.
Yeah, for them with a wonderful instrumentation and orchestrations. And I said, put that on and put it on loud. I put it on. I said to myself, put it on. I put it on, and I played it loud so she can be listening to herself sing as she passed. And it was a half hour and not a sound, not a very shallow breathing. And Lucas, our youngest, went up. One of the hospice nurses says, "What a lovely, sweet voice." And Lucas went right up to his mother and he said right into her, "Ma, the nurse said you have a lovely, sweet voice." And she said, "Thank you," and passed away. That's the last word she said. Thank you.
That's like the best death anyone could possibly have anywhere. To say thank you, to say thank you at the end of your life. That's it.
I'm shooting for that.
That's good.
But that's, you know, they did a whole thing on 60 Minutes about, and this is
that's the most ideal death I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I don't think I have heard
with all your
anybody
loved ones,
better.
with all your 3 kids and your beloved nephew.
You remember Bobby's dad when you went to the birth anniversary?
Which is
Robert's dad. He was in the
Oh,
he
yeah.
was in the army. You were talking to him during that little birth anniversary thing we had.
Yeah.
And he always really enjoyed that. He died of cancer in a very similar way, in that everybody was around his bed when he died, except for me. I was in Kansas working, and I was laying down, and I knew he was close to dying. And I was laying down, and we had just finished this picture in Kansas, and
there's a professional stopping when they hear an helicopter. Look at that. Hey, give her a hand. She drank a whole glass of water.
I was the only one left out of it, and I didn't like not being there.
Yeah.
But I was sleeping, and it was really late, and my eyes were closed, and I was just about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden my head filled up with this sort of really bright light, and it was kind of like, what's this? And all of a sudden I just like knew it was Hector. And I said out loud, I said, "Oh, you've died, haven't you?" And I kind of, there was just like a feeling there, and I said, "Oh, I'll miss you. And I just knew it was him, and it was like he came to see me, and I think stuff like that happens. Does this happen to you? Do the paparazzi come like this all the time here?
No, they don't know we're here. Well, that was you, You did that. You were full of them, and you went to bed, and so that's a wakeful dream. But there was a thing I was saying on CBS, I think 60 Minutes, the Sunday morning show about death and dying. And one of the sad things is when people are terminal and hospitals hold them there because they keep giving tests every day, all kinds of tests.
They wake them up to give them a sleeping pill.
To give them tests mainly. This is the thing, because each test costs money, and the prices go up, and they don't want you to go home. If you go home, you die. It doesn't cost anything. But the thing that got me, they gave a 90-year-old woman, among other things, the heart, the saying, all the blood tests, Pap smear. At 99, but it goes down as a charge. So yes, well, that's what hospitals do. So the first thing to do is, when you know somebody's terminal, you feel terminal, get me home. Get me home among my loved ones, so I can look at the things I like to look at instead of tubes.
That's like common sense, isn't it? But that's what's don't get me started about my politics, because I'll shoot myself in the foot. I really have a lot of negative feelings about politics now, and I'm a person who used to donate money to politics. I'm a person who used to sort of believe in a lot of good things like that, and I have radically changed my views about things like that because of it.
It's very hard to watch the news and hear people who who should be doing something other than what they're doing. They're not doing it.
I voted for Obama, and when he put Secretary Gates back in as the Secretary of Defense, I went, WTF? I was like, that made no sense to me. And I guess what I feel is that in terms of politics, I feel like our country and probably the world has become a corporation.
I know. The thing is,
that's what's so scary
you
about
can't opt out, though. You got to be angry and still at least push for the people that can do something. They would love you to get out. They would love you.
I know, but I can be so defiant, and that defiant.
Look
quality,
how far away they went.
That defiant quality has become like, people are frightened of me.
I know,
and nobody wants to feel like people are frightened of me.
No, it's true.
So I've been trying to find the tone I'm supposed to take that won't frighten people, and yet will still be me.
Yeah, well,
and that's been what I've been trying to find, and I feel like honestly, I feel like I'm finding it, because.
That's good. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Because don't give up. I mean, I rail at the set. One of the ways I work, I scream at the television. No, I don't. But when I want to, if I feel a little lethargic, I turn on like Fox News, and I'll get so angry that I'll charge myself up.
Yeah, well.
But the terrible thing is that people are throwing out these absolute lies. Look up, they're telling the 18% or 25% think Obama's a Muslim. They really believe it. And you can't, and I'm saying, how do you get to the hardheads, people who are dumb? And I say, you don't get to them. You hopefully, they're enough.
But to think, but even when you say like it's this amount of people think he's a Muslim, or this amount of people think he doesn't have a birth certificate, or, you know, or whatever it is, like go one step further, which is, if he was a Muslim, what's your point?
I know.
You know what I mean? What's your point? He's a Muslim.
Well,
then that means he can get along better with the Muslims, and they'll, you know, and do even more, you know,
well,
like negotiating.
That's
right?
the logical thing, but there,
You know?
but inbred hatreds and the, you know, that still exists. It still exists. You know, the sad thing
is that. Do you think it's fostered?
Pardon?
Do you think that the inbred hatred? Do you think that
well, sure, because
a fostering of this,
well,
so
you
that
know,
we always have to be at war?
It's the educational system. The schools have to be able to teach people what is right and wrong, instead of, you know,
filling them with facts,
with untrue things, lies.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. People are believing lies. You know, it's very interesting, but we have a pretty dumb electorate. Every once in we voted a guy named Bush twice,
that was the most retarded thing.
So there was a thing written a long time ago. This is very interesting. I.F. Stone used to be a writer for a New York newspaper. He was an investigative reporter. He retired at 70, 75, and he always wanted to learn Greek. So he decided to learn Greek when he's retired, so he could read Homer in the original. Well, in reading Greek, he being an investigative reporter, he says Socrates was put to death for contributing to the delinquency of minors. He said in those days, I mean, you know, homosexual behavior. He said in those days there was so much of that going on in that time and place. So he investigated that. You know why Socrates was put to death? He found out. He went through bibliographies. He went to libraries and burnt down libraries. He found what Socrates was really put to death for. He said democracy will not work. He was against democracy, and for a very good reason. He said to have a democracy, people who vote people in have to have certain information, and most of the countries are literate. There's only 12% of people who can read. Those are the people who are going to make the leaders. He says, so you're not going to have democracy.
Well, would you
and
say
that's what the trouble. We got people who can't read.
I think it's beyond that. I think that we're also not given information that's very pertinent,
or given bad
withheld information.
Well, given lying information that people can't.
Well, that's just a cover story.
Yeah,
it's like you know that. Okay, we'll pretend this is the story. Even the real story's over here, but we're never told the real story.
Yeah, but people who are with intelligence and don't have an agenda, people. They can find the truth very easily, but if you have an agenda, if you have billionaires, you want that tax cut to be cut. You want your tax cut.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now it's going on. I can't believe it. That was a Bush tax cut. That's going to expire, but they're trying to keep it going.
It's tough because that's one of the things that I guess even maybe, I think when Obama went in, but actually when Bush got elected the second time, that's when I was like, what kind of country am I in here? I was very depressed about that, and I basically came to the conclusion people are stupid, and you know what, you gotta accept this.
Socrates said that hundreds of years ago.
Basically, that democracy can't work unless people are intelligent and informed,
or they're smart enough to know when they're being lied to, when the truth comes out. You can't tell them that this is water and this is wine. You know. Anyway, are we finished? We're down
You're
to.
You're the best, Carl.
Once you get to knocking Bush, you can't go past that.
Yeah, right.
I just want to check.
That was great. That was fabulous. You were wonderful.
Precisely, yeah. Once you knock bush, you've done everything you need to do. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to see me, and it's just lifted my spirits to no end.
By the way, where do you live?
I live at Santa Monica. Thank you, darling.
I'll walk you out, and this will be a nice one of those chaplain walks. We walk into the distance.
Best.
Ooh.
Thank you again.
I walk you to your car.
This means so much to me.